The More You Know is a media and tech literacy series produced by Independent Thinker. It aims to help the public become more knowledgeable about our digital world. In this episode, we cover digital repression, transnational weapons hunting exiled activists.
Imagine running for your life, right? Like across a physical border. You've just left behind this authoritarian regime that completely wants to silence you.
Right.
You've navigated all these checkpoints, endured the interrogations, and finally, you step off a plane in a new country.
You're exhausted.
Exactly. You breathe this massive sigh of relief. You look around the airport and you think, okay, I'm finally safe. But the terrifying reality is that the people hunting you, well, they didn't stay behind.
Yeah, they're already waiting for you.
Right. They're sitting quietly right inside your pocket.
And that false sense of security is, honestly, it's the most chilling aspect of modern surveillance.
Yeah.
I mean, the physical border, which, we spent centuries defining as the ultimate barrier of state power, it's become almost completely irrelevant.
Which is wild to think about. And, January 28th is marked globally as Data Privacy Day. So if you're listening to this right now, navigating the internet, you probably associate that day with, the mild everyday annoyances of our digital age.
Oh, for sure. Like clicking accept all on those cookie pop-ups just so you can actually read an article.
Yeah, exactly. Or you roll your eyes at a targeted ad that just, follows you from website to website because you searched for a pair of shoes once.
Right. Maybe you spend 10 minutes making sure your social media profile isn't totally public. It's an abstract administrative chore for most of us.
Right. It's an annoyance. But for the vast majority of people logging online, data privacy is fundamentally a consumer protection issue.
Yeah, it's a matter of financial security, like keeping your credit card numbers safe from scammers, or just a general desire not to be, monetized by huge tech companies.
Yeah.
It rarely triggers a genuine biological fear response.
Exactly. But when you step into the world of exiled activists and dissidents, that whole abstraction just evaporates instantly. We're looking at a landscape where data privacy isn't about avoiding a creepy ad. For some people, data privacy is quite literally a matter of physical survival and, frankly, psychological endurance.
Yeah, the physical lines on a map that designate a safe haven, they just no longer offer any guarantee of protection at all.
It completely upends our conventional, historical understanding of what it actually means to seek asylum. The threat is entirely borderless now.
Completely.
So today's deep dive is dedicated to exploring this chilling modern phenomenon. It's a crisis where physical geography just fails to protect vulnerable people from the reach of authoritarian regimes.
We're going to be unpacking a pretty complex term today, which is digital transnational repression.
Yes, and to guide this investigation, we're relying on some incredibly sobering, meticulously documented source material. We have a video transcript and a detailed project overview from the Citizen Lab.
Right, and for anyone who might be unfamiliar, the Citizen Lab is this interdisciplinary laboratory based at the Munk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy at the University of Toronto.
They do amazing work.
They really do. They operate right at the bleeding edge of researching how digital platforms intersect with global human rights.
And their work is absolutely vital because they specialize in making the invisible visible. I mean, they take these highly complex, deeply opaque digital mechanisms, things most of us literally never think about, and they document the very real, very human cost attached to them.
Yeah, they show us the terrifying reality of what happens when the digital tools that we just absolutely take for granted are weaponized against the world's most vulnerable populations.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we really have to start with the actual mechanics of the threat before we can truly understand the human devastation it causes. What exactly are the sources talking about when they use the term transnational repression?
Well, the Citizen Lab provides a really comprehensive working definition. Transnational repression basically describes the specific methods authoritarian states use to reach across national borders to silence dissent among diaspora and exile communities.
Right.
So picture a citizen who has spoken out against corruption, who's advocated for basic human rights, and who's been forced to flee their home country under threat of imprisonment, or even worse.
They cross a physical border into a new, theoretically safe democracy.
Exactly. But the authoritarian regime they fled doesn't just, close the file and let them go. The regime continues to target, harass, and attempt to silence that individual completely, regardless of where they reside on the globe.
And it's important to note, the concept of a state hunting down its dissidents abroad isn't exactly a new invention. I mean, if you look at the Cold War or even earlier, history is full of regimes sending physical intelligence agents across oceans to intimidate or assassinate people.
Oh, absolutely. But the sources highlight that the digital part of this equation has fundamentally altered the physics of the threat.
How so?
Well, the explosive market growth of digital technologies and, global internet connectivity has supercharged this old practice to a level that was previously unimaginable.
Right, because authoritarian regimes no longer need to spend millions of dollars to dispatch a physical agent, right? They don't have to secure fake passports and risk a massive international incident just to intimidate someone in a foreign capital.
Exactly. They can achieve the exact same chilling effect through a smartphone for a fraction of the cost and with zero physical risk to themselves.
Wow.
The sources emphasize that this digital dimension is rapidly becoming the absolute cornerstone of everyday transnational repression. It's no longer just reserved for, extreme high-profile spy cases.
It's the daily reality.
Yes, it's the grinding, unavoidable reality for dissidents living in exile.
To really grasp the impossible dilemma these activists are facing, I mean, imagine having to carry a tracking beacon in your pocket 24 hours a day. It constantly broadcasts your exact location, your private thoughts, your network of friends, all to people who actively want to destroy you.
That sounds like a sci-fi movie.
It does. But the catch is, this beacon is also the only device that allows you to hear your mother's voice or to continue the life's work you sacrificed everything for. You literally cannot simply throw it away.
And that analogy perfectly captures the structural trap here. The source material highlights this brutal truth. These exile activists simply do not have the luxury of direct physical communication. They've been forced to scatter across the globe.
Yeah.
If they want to stay in contact with loved ones back home, or if they want to stay connected to fellow activists still operating underground in their home country, technology isn't just a convenience, it's critical infrastructure.
It's their only lifeline.
Exactly.
But wait, I want to push back on this premise for a second because I think a lot of people listening might be thinking the exact same thing. If an activist knows that a specific app like WhatsApp or Instagram is compromised by a foreign intelligence agency, why not just use a burner phone?
Right?
Or why not use a sophisticated VPN or highly encrypted specialized communication tools? Why are they blending their personal and political lives if they know the stakes are literally life and death?
I mean, it is a very logical question, but it assumes a level of technological fluidity that just doesn't exist in reality. The friction actually comes from the people on the other end of the line.
Oh, I see.
The activists might be perfectly capable of using an encrypted, anonymous burner device, but try explaining how to download, verify, and operate a secure, decentralized messaging app to an 80-year-old mother living under a heavily monitored internet firewall in an authoritarian state.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's impossible.
It really is.
So the regime targets the weakest technological link.
Precisely. If the elderly parent or the childhood friend only knows how to use the state-monitored mainstream chat application, the activist is essentially forced to meet them there.
That's heartbreaking.
The sources point to a deeply tragic reality where activists are forced into making these impossible, agonizing compromises. One activist in the transcript explicitly admits that at a certain point you desperately need to differentiate between your political advocacy work and your personal relationships just to keep everyone safe.
But they can't.
Right, they confess, and I'm quoting here, "Unfortunately, I know it's wrong, but I use the same platforms for both my personal and political life."
Because there are literally no viable alternatives. The technology that enables their transnational human rights work is the exact same technology that brings the surveillance apparatus of an authoritarian state right to the digital doorstep of their family.
And authoritarian regimes don't even need the activist to make a mistake anymore. They utilize incredibly sophisticated tools like zero-click spyware.
Zero-click, meaning no clicking required.
Exactly. This means an activist doesn't even have to click a malicious link or download a suspicious file to be compromised. A regime operator can simply call the activist's phone via a common app. And even if the activist doesn't answer the call, the spyware installs itself.
Wait, really? Just by calling the phone?
Just by calling. In an instant, the device becomes a live microphone and a GPS tracker, feeding every movement and conversation back to the state they fled.
That is terrifying. And because they are forced to rely on these mind-compromised platforms, the battlefield fundamentally shifts. It moves from the digital device directly into the activist's mind. We're talking about a devastating psychological toll here.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we really have to look at a highly specific report from the Citizen Lab titled Psychological and Emotional War. Digital Transnational Repression in Canada.
The title alone is a massive indicator of the severity.
It really is. We are not dealing with the annoyance of hacked emails or spam here. We are dealing with deliberate, state-sponsored psychological warfare.
And the fact that the report specifically focuses on dissidents living in Canada is incredibly telling. It proves that even when someone reaches a robust, wealthy democracy with strong legal frameworks and human rights protections, this digital repression easily pierces those borders.
Oh, absolutely.
The physical geography of Canada offers zero shield against the psychological damage.
And the overarching conclusion of that report is stark and honestly deeply concerning. This digital repression severely impacts the ability of activists and dissidents living in exile to actually undertake their human rights advocacy work.
Right.
The harassment is so pervasive, and the fear of compromising their networks is so intense that it effectively neutralizes their ability to speak out, which is, of course, the ultimate goal of the authoritarian regimes.
Again, I want to clarify the scale of this for you, the listener, because we all get a little anxious about our digital footprint. You might worry about identity theft if you lose your wallet, or you might feel a pang of dread if you get a notification that a password was involved in a data breach.
Sure.
But the sources outline an environment that is fundamentally alien to everyday digital anxiety.
It's alien because the threat actor isn't a random cybercriminal sending out a million phishing emails hoping to make a quick $500.
Right.
The threat actor is a massively resourced nation-state intelligence apparatus whose sole objective, day in and day out, is to destroy your life, your credibility, and your sanity.
And the transcript lists profound psychological impacts that go way beyond just stress. Activists report significantly increased feelings of panic and a paralyzing uncertainty. Some begin questioning every single aspect of their daily routine.
Yeah.
One activist actually described it as creating a state of permanent paranoia, like a constant suffocating anxiety about their privacy being violated and weaponized against them.
And, the phrase permanent paranoia usually implies an irrational, unfounded fear of persecution.
Yeah.
But the horror of digital transnational repression is that the fear is entirely rational.
Right.
They are being watched. They are being targeted. The paranoia is simply an accurate assessment of their reality.
And that accurate assessment leads to incredibly specific, heartbreaking behavioral changes. Like, think about your average day. You might go to a coffee shop, open your laptop, click through a captive portal screen, and jump on the public Wi-Fi without a second thought.
Maybe it's slightly annoying if the connection is slow, but that's it.
Exactly. But the sources detail how exiled activists no longer feel free to connect to any public Wi-Fi.
Because when you understand the mechanics of local network surveillance, a coffee shop Wi-Fi network isn't a convenience. It's a massive vulnerability.
Wow.
To a nation-state actor, intercepting unencrypted traffic on a public network or setting up a spoofed network that looks identical to the coffee shop's Wi-Fi is trivial.
So easy.
Connecting to it could instantly expose the activist's physical location, their contacts, and their unencrypted communications to a foreign intelligence service.
One person in the transcript specifically noted they completely avoid sitting in coffee shops anymore. They said, I have to be connected to the internet, and the only internet that I would trust is my internet here at home.
Yeah.
So this invisible digital threat effectively traps them physically. They've fled thousands of miles across the globe to find freedom, only to place themselves under a form of voluntary house arrest because the local Starbucks Wi-Fi feels like a trap.
And this state of relentless psychological instability actively degrades their emotional relationships. I mean, when you cannot trust your devices, when you're constantly second-guessing every new follower or unexpected message.
It has to take a toll.
Oh, massively. When you're living in a state of permanent paranoia, your ability to connect with a partner, with friends, or with family is severely compromised. The regime doesn't just silence the activists politically. They isolate them emotionally.
They dismantle the person's support network from the inside out.
Precisely.
And that isolation inside their homes is a direct, tragic result of this psychological war. But the sources reveal an even darker truth, because this repression doesn't just stay trapped behind a computer screen.
No, it doesn't.
It actively hunts them in the physical world, and the tactics change dramatically based on who is being targeted. Here's where it gets really interesting and honestly deeply disturbing, because the sources explicitly state that this threat is highly gendered.
Yes.
Women are particularly vulnerable, and the methods used against them are uniquely vicious.
The tactics used against women take on a distinct, highly aggressive, and highly personal nature. Authoritarian regimes are remarkably adept at identifying societal pressure points.
Right.
They know that to discredit a female activist, they can leverage deeply entrenched misogyny and cultural taboos. The sources list the specific types of online attacks women face in these scenarios. They're subjected to relentless rape threats, the creation and distribution of forged intimate photos, and explicit graphic death threats.
We really need to talk about the forged intimate photos because we hear a lot about deepfakes today in the context of, celebrity gossip or political misinformation.
Sure.
But when a regime uses a deepfake against an exiled female activist, they aren't just trying to embarrass her. We have to understand the cultural context these activists often operate within.
Exactly.
In many of these diaspora communities, an intimate photo, even one that the victim can prove is completely mathematically fake, can entirely destroy her credibility.
It is the absolute weaponization of shame. In certain cultural contexts, the mere association with a scandalous image is enough to ruin a reputation.
Yeah.
It can lead to an activist losing all of her funding from conservative community donors. It can result in her local support network completely abandoning her. And in extreme cases, it can lead to her own family disowning her to protect their honor.
Oh my God.
The regime uses the deepfake as a targeted missile aimed directly at her social standing and her ability to survive in her new country.
It is a profound violation that isolates her from the very people who were supposed to be her safety net. And what's fascinating here is, and I use the word fascinating in the most clinical, grim sense, these online attacks rarely exist in a vacuum. The sources emphasize a terrifying trajectory. The digital aggression frequently serves as a precursor to real-world physical violence.
What's fascinating here is that digital harassment is specifically designed to test boundaries and instill a persistent state of terror, but it almost invariably escalates into physical confrontation.
Right. This is where the abstraction of digital privacy completely shatters. The transcript recounts a harrowing anecdote from a woman activist that just stops you in your tracks. She talks about enduring a constant barrage of online abuse and then mentions receiving an incredibly disturbing message on her Instagram account.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just a brief, hateful comment typed out in 5 seconds. An individual actually took the time to write her a whole poem over a page long, detailing exactly how he was going to rape her.
And the psychology behind writing a page-long poem is what makes it so uniquely terrifying. I mean, it requires significant time, effort, and a really chilling level of fixation.
Right. It's not a spur-of-the-moment thing.
Exactly. It isn't an impulsive lash-out. It is a calculated piece of psychological torture designed to signal to the victim that the attacker is deeply, obsessively invested in terrorizing her.
And then that obsession leaped off the screen and into the physical world. The same activist recounts that shortly after receiving this digital terror, she was just out doing a mundane daily task. She was walking her dog in her new, supposedly safe city.
Right?
And as she crossed the street, a man suddenly started chasing her.
A screaming man chasing her in broad daylight in the middle of the city where she sought asylum.
She ran for her life all the way back to her apartment building. She barely managed to get inside and lock the heavy door behind her, and the man just started violently banging on it, still screaming from the other side.
It is a literal nightmare scenario.
The digital terror she had been experiencing through her phone materialized right behind her on the pavement.
And perhaps the most chilling detail of this entire story, the part that really underscores the systemic failure surrounding digital transnational repression, is what happened next.
Right.
The activist did what anyone living in a functioning society is supposed to do when they are attacked. She called the local police.
And the police told her there were absolutely nothing they could do about it.
Nothing they could do. Because local law enforcement agencies, even in major Western democracies, are generally equipped to handle a broken window, a noise complaint, or a localized domestic dispute.
Right, normal street crime.
Exactly. They are entirely unequipped, massively under-resourced, and often completely lack the legal frameworks or jurisdictional authority to handle a transnational digital threat orchestrated by a foreign intelligence service.
It's way above their pay grade.
So when a sophisticated digital stalking campaign results in a man banging on a door in their city, the local police just treat it as an isolated, unsolvable incident of street harassment.
It leaves the victim in a total void of protection. The state she fled is still actively hunting her through her devices, and the state she fled to cannot or will not protect her from the physical mechanics of that hunt. It is a complete, devastating failure of the physical borders that were supposed to guarantee her safety.
It perfectly illustrates why digital transnational repression is so insidious. It weaponizes the borderless, instantaneous nature of the internet while exploiting the fact that our local laws, our police forces, and our physical protections are still stubbornly bound by geography.
Wow, yeah.
The attackers move at the speed of light while the defenders are stuck at the city limits.
That is such an intense way to put it. We've covered a lot of heavy, complex ground today, and we really need to take a step back and look at the whole picture. We started by defining how authoritarian regimes no longer need physical spies to reach across borders. They simply infiltrate the digital lifelines of dissidents.
Yeah.
We explored the impossible dilemma of activists forced to blend their personal and political lives on compromised platforms because they cannot teach an elderly relative to use secure encryption.
Right.
We unpacked the crippling psychological toll, the permanent paranoia that turns a simple coffee shop Wi-Fi network into a terrifying trap, isolating people inside their own homes. And finally, we looked at the horrifying reality of how these digital threats disproportionately target women with weaponized shame and escalate into very real physical violence on the street, often with zero recourse or protection from local authorities.
Understanding the depth of this research really forces us to radically reevaluate our relationship with the technology we touch hundreds of times a day.
So, what does this all mean? It means that when you pick up your phone today to effortlessly text a friend, or post a photo of your lunch, or log onto a public network without a second thought, you are exercising a profound privilege.
You really are.
You are experiencing a safe digital existence. For an exiled activist, those exact same actions on those exact same platforms are life or death calculations. They use these tools knowing it invites psychological warfare and physical danger into their lives, but they do it anyway because the alternative is silence.
And it leaves us with a critical dilemma as we move further into an entirely digitized world. If the very tools designed to connect humanity globally are now the most effective, cheapest weapons for authoritarian regimes to police dissent globally, and if our local law enforcement agencies are structurally powerless to stop it, who ultimately is responsible for protecting the digital borders of a human mind?
It is a question that challenges the very foundation of how we define safety and asylum in the 21st century. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Take care of yourselves, and we'll catch you next time.
For more episodes related to media, social media, tech, and privacy, visit our YouTube channel, Independent Thinker LLC.